Okay, so I spoke yesterday about 5 and 6 being the transition act. I've always viewed Streetcar Named Desire in a series of 3 acts, right? It's not in acts, but this is how I define it, right? Act one, scenes 1 to 4, is we don't like Blanche, we don't understand her motivations, we see her as a selfish person. While we don't really care for anyone else, Blanche is no really much better than anyone else around her. She's just one more broken person among a bunch of broken people. Scene 5 and 6 is about getting us to understand Blanche's behavior, right? And they do it in very specific ways. In scene 5, they tell us, and Blanche reveals a vulnerability, her fear of getting older. She talks about her her necessity to try to find some sort of calmness because she feels that she's losing control. We start to see the effects of her uh, um, mental instability, where she hears the polka music being played, and that means that every time she hears this polka music being played, it's because she's losing control of her mind, and she's losing grip of reality. So we feel empathetic for her, right? We're shocked to the end where she flirts with this 17-year-old boy and tries to seduce him, right? But we see it more as there's something wrong with her, and it's more pathological than it's actually intentional. When I mean pathological, it means that she has almost an impulse or an issue where she just does it without thinking about it, right? Even when she's finishing seducing the boy, she says, no, I have to remind myself to keep my hand off for children, which means that it's almost a reflex for her. She does it without thinking about the consequences of it because she's still dealing with all this issues with her own identity, her wanting to prove her sexuality by making sure every man loves her, and also being attracted to younger men because she married her husband when she was 18, and the idea of capturing the innocence of youth, returning to before what happened with her husband and everything sort of fell apart. Scene 6 was, Blanche and Stan and Mitch on a date, and how uncomfortable it was. How Mitch is a generally nice, harmless man who, is just bumbling his way through life, but he's a good guy. And then we finally get to understand Blanche's behavior. We find out about her marriage to a gay man. We find out about her basically confronting her husband, right? First pretending that it didn't happen, then going to dinner, and then her saying something harmful, right? She says, you make me sick, right? And again, remember, this is 1950s America. This is not 21st century America, where we're far more accepting of people of different sexual identities and orientations. Here, the husband thinks everything's over. I'm going to come out. I'm going to be targeted. I can't live this way, and he kills himself, right? This also breaks apart Blanche as a person. Remember, she's built her entire life about her beauty, her charm, that she is special, and now she marries a man who is gay. And again, she's not going to interpret it as, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. That's how he's always been. She'll interpret it as, I made this man gay, so therefore I have to prove myself, prove to everyone that I am all woman, and I don't make men gay, right? So we get empathy for it. Scenes 7 to 11 is all about us being on her side, right? Being her advocate, understanding her position, and seeing those other people around her as detrimental to her versus as her being amongst a group of individuals that are all damaged. We see Blanche as a person who is being inflicted upon, that the damage is being inflicted upon her. So scene 7, it's all about Stanley. You'll see in scene 7 that Stanley has figured out everything about her past and is sort of telling his wife that, I know who she is, I know what she's done. We find out about the fact that she had numerous sexual relationships after death for her husband because she felt lonely. She had an inappropriate relationship with a student, which got her fired from her job. She ended up living in a hotel, the Flamingo, where she basically lived and slept with many men. And it got so bad that they asked her to leave town, which ended her where she was right now, right? So it's Blanche's birthday. She's kind of happy. She's talking about, she's thinking about things are going to change. She's singing a song. It's not getting angrier and angrier. He's mad. She's using all the hot water again. She's just doing all this stuff. And then he tells his wife that not only all the information he's found out about her, but he tells her specifically that he's told Mitch about it, right? Right. And again, Stanley's position isn't about helping his friend Mitch. It's not even about protecting him. It's, hey, we are on the same bowling team. We have the same group of friends. If I let Mitch be fooled, it's like I'm being fooled. And like, again, with Stanley, anything that affects him, anything that makes him look weak or silly, he will quash. So he has no problem telling his friend this information because he wants to protect his own ego. Scene 8 is this big scene where they're having dinner, and Blanche is trying to pretend everything's okay. And this is an important scene because this is a scene where Stella shows her past attitude and feelings by telling Stanley to wash his hands and clean up because he's making a pig himself. And Stanley becomes super violent. Now, again, we talked about the fact that Stanley, when he feels threatened, becomes very violent, right? When his position in society or wherever he is threatened, he has no problem getting violent, right? When Blanche was dancing, he smashed his own radio because he wanted to show people that when I make a decision or I tell someone to do something in my own house, it happens. So he smashes the plates and tells them both to be quiet, that he's the king, and he's never putting up with us anymore. Thing goes on, and then it's revealed that Blanche is just distraught about what's going on. Stanley gives her a bus ticket to leave, which is him telling her, I don't want you in my house anymore. And again, Blanche is falling apart. She doesn't have Mitch anymore, just having any money, no prospects. And the place that she's been at for a long time, Stanley just out and up just said, you can't be here. Now, scene 8 is also very important because it also reveals the relationship between Stella and Stanley. Okay, the relationship between the two has been one in which when Stella arrived in the Elysian Fields many years ago, she was a lot like Blanche, right? And it was Stanley's influence or his animal magnetism or what he says, she was on a pedestal, he pulled it off the pedestal and brought it down to his level, right? That made Stella change and adapt, right? And this is Stanley admitting to us what he's afraid of. He's afraid that she is making, that Stella will leave him, that she will turn to her old attitude, act like Blanche, who Stanley absolutely hates. Remember, Stanley does not like Blanche, doesn't like anything about her, but he's afraid that she'll return to those old attitudes and leave him, right? And remember, as much as Stanley's walking around like I'm a big, strong alpha male, I don't care about anything, his entire ego or his identity is built on the fact of being the dominant male. And if Blanche decides to leave him, if Stella decides to leave him and throw him aside, it shows that he wasn't strong enough or good enough as a man to keep his wife. So he can't allow that to happen, right? In the middle of the fight, Stella goes into labor, right? Scene 9, it's an important scene. It's the conversation between Mitch and Blanche. It's probably one of the most important scenes you need to read about because you see Mitch being angry. You see Mitch revealing stuff about her that he knows what's going on. Symbols in the scene is Mitch tearing through all the lantern shades, like the things that soften light in the room, because light is a symbol for revealing and showing truth. So he wants to see her in the light. He goes, I've never really seen you in the light. Every time I've seen you, it's been dark or in shades or thing. And he eventually sees her. He remarks that he knows that she's always been older. He didn't really mind it, but he goes, why are you lying to me? You lied about everything about me, right? And it's a big confrontation where they have, and Blanche comes clean, right? Blanche says, yeah, I did lie. She admits that she lives in a fancy world, but her actual is that it's a nicer world than I live in right now. It affords me more opportunities. I could be a nicer person in this fancy world than the world I'm in now, where I'm bound by the actions of Stanley, right? Where I have very limited freedom. She admits the relationship with the men. She admits to being lonely. She admits to everything. She just puts all her cards on the table. She says, "This is who I am." Okay, and it's really designed for us to sort of get Blanche. Now, again, you may not like Blanche as a character. You may not like her actions and her behavior, but here is where we understand her. We understand that these are the things that made her behaved in this very specific way, and we understand. And part of it is systemic, right? Part of it is that she's, as a woman, has been trained to be sexual. She's been sexualized. She's been trained to flirt. She's been trained to not do anything seriously. She's been trained to be dependent upon a man. And now all those things are being thrown back up in her face, right? So there's a systemic part of her choices that happen that she does. And she's also smart to understand that if I tell people what I really did about myself with myself these past few after the death of my husband, people are going to treat me poorly. And they're not going to see me as a human being. They're going to treat me as a prostitute, a whore. And it's evident here because Mitch, who was the nicest man in the entire book, he's the sweetest guy there. When Blanche says, "This is who I am, marry me," he says, "You're not clean enough to bring to my mother," and proceeds to try to have sex with her, right? So even Mitch can't be, even Mitch follows the same dogma, ideology, that women who have too much sex are whores, right? And they're not meant to be married to, they're meant to just have sex with. Okay. Now, again, Mitch fails because Blanche screams, and Mitch is not going to rape Blanche. He just won't do that. That's not in his thing. He'll run away because he's overwhelmed. This is not him. He's going to go. But again, pay close attention to C9 because C9 is revealing the fact that Blanche is right. This is why Blanche lies. And even after that, we, well, again, don't like her lying, might say, "I get why you lie," right? Because when you tell the truth, what do you get? You get basically the nicest man in the room calling you a whore, a prostitute, and then saying, "I don't want anything from you." 10 is when Stanley comes back. He's drunk. He comes back from the hospital. And Stanley knows that Blanche and Mitch had a fight. He knows that Mitch ran away. He knows about what actually happened in the apartment because he found Mitch. He spoke to Mitch just after Mitch ran away from Blanche. So he basically, he's toying with her. He says, "I'm going to have a baby. You're going to go off with your oil millionaire." Again, she mentions the fact that Shep Huntley is going to take her away from this, and he's poking her, right? And he goes, "Let's be friends, what's going on?" And I have my wife and kid, you have your oil magnet. He knows none of this stuff is happening. And Blanche gets a little annoyed, right? She says that, she starts lying again. She says, "I threw out Mitch because Mitch was rude to me and I could not take that behavior, and I'm a woman of decency and I deserve to be respected." Now, again, some of the stuff she says is completely right? She wants to be respected. She says, "I deserve respect and dignity, so I'm not going to put up with Mitch's vulgar behavior," and I told him to leave. Now, it didn't happen that way she describes it. She screamed, he ran away, but she softens the story to make her seem like she was in control. She's the one who sent Mitch away when he acted inappropriately. So he knows this, gets angry, tells her, "I know you're a liar. I've always known you're a liar. You never fooled me." And he goes off, he changes his clothes, and that's when after he assaults her, right? Blanche knows something is wrong and fears Stanley is going to do something. She attempts to call for Shep Huntley. Another important factor in scene 10 is that when she does try to call for him, she doesn't have his number because the reality is there was never a chance that Shep Huntley was going to come and save her. It was just in her head. It was, "I had an old boyfriend, he's wealthy, he'll come save me." And that was never going to happen, right? And then he rapes her, right? He is told several times. Now, again, we want to stress the fact that there is nothing that Blanche does to encourage this rape. Stanley does not like her. Blanche does not like Stanley. So there's no sexual, physical attraction or sexual tension. During the thing, Stanley is staying near her, and Blanche is saying, "Stay away from me." And Stanley's like, "Well, why should I? Maybe I need to interfere with you," right? Blanche breaks a bottle and puts the bottle in his face and says, "If you come near me, I'm going to push you in your face." Stanley laughs and says, "You just want a little roughhouse and fight." And then he grabs her and they wrestle, and he rips the ball from her hand. He says, "Tiger, tiger." And he says, "We've had this date from the beginning." Now, again, think about his perception saying that from the moment I knew you, I was going to sleep with you. That's what he was saying. That he was saying that I was going to conquer you like I conquered your sister, right? So in his mind, he's pursuing this. This is just the natural progression of what was going to happen between them, which again isn't true. It's Stanley being a rapist. It's him justifying his behavior. Scene 11, everything falls apart. It's, I think, probably sometime a few weeks after the rape. We off camera or off page. Blanche has told Stella about the assault, and Stella has heard it, but chooses not to believe it because she wants to keep Stanley. Again, no sort of playing poker again, but this is a different scene where Stanley's winning, but he's still obnoxious and arrogant, and he's still making them play because, you know, he made them play because he was losing, and that wasn't good enough. Now he's making them play when he's winning because I want to take all their money, right? Mitch is completely, he's there and he's angry, and he's angry at Stanley, but Stanley can't tell why, but, you know, we all know why. And Blanche has lost pretty much connection to reality. She's hiding in the other room. She doesn't come out. She thinks she's going away on a trip with Chip Huntley because that's what Stella tells her, right? In actuality, what has happened is that they've called mental health professionals to take Blanche away to an asylum. So Blanche has no idea what's going on until they show up, and then when they show up, she has a meltdown and freaks out. They are going to drug her, and the doctor just says, "I'll treat you. Let me just treat her nicely." And when he does, he calls him Mr. Bois. Blanche gets up and says, I've always counted on the kindness of strangers," and goes off with him. Now, remember that Stella does not leave, does not go after sister, does not show in the play any shows remorse, but is willing to do anything to change the situation, right? She just kind of lets it happen the way it happens. In the 1955 version film of it, they punish him. I'm not too sure, but I think in the one that you've watched, the 1995 version that you've watched, he's not punished. And the idea here
The
is
one I
that
watch is later on they still go back together, but the one I think is the oldest one should be like Stella take the baby and go upstairs and saying, "I'm not
right,
never gonna come down."
absolutely right. And that one is actually wrong. That one is an interpretation done by the filmmakers because they had, and again, it's 1950s cinema, and they said, well, rape is wrong. We can't have one of the characters rape another character without consequence. Here, because they kept, I think the 95 version does a better job of keeping to the essence of the script because they can't have those uncomfortable endings where things don't work out well. She goes off with Stanley, right? So it's meant to be sort of this sort of melancholy thing, the destruction of Blanche, right? That she's finally been destroyed, and her sister is unwilling to make a change, right? So again, that's the play. So again, I'm just giving you sort of general ideas of what's going on. So my expectation is to, you know, if you watch the play, okay, my expectation is to also read the scenes as well, because there'll be more information there, hidden nuances. And again, when we do assignments, if you need to do quotes, you're going to need to pull from the play and you need to know where it is. So if you're, you know, a good idea would be, you know, if you have watched it or are watching it or are going to go back or review it, you know, when you see a certain, try to follow along with your book or your PDF, because then you know where all the scenes are, right? Sometimes I'll look at some of your stuff and I'll say this happens in scene 3 or scene 4. If you watch the film, you would only know that because you have to be aware of where those events happen in the story, right? And because I've read the play, I can say, well, this happens in scene 5 or this happens in scene 6. So be aware of those things. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share on this one.